So there's a Army Ranger, a Navy SEAL, and a Latina housewife from the Bronx, and they're sitting in a secret room somewhere in Langley, Virginia, in the CIA. Agent comes out and says, look, you're being recruited for a very special assassination mission, but we need to see if you can do exactly what it is that's required of you. So they give them 3 a gun. They say, hey, look, the risk is high, and what we're asking you to sacrifice is high, but so is the reward. We're talking in the millions. If you do this successfully, you'll have a chance at a brand new life, and a mighty good one at that. They give him the 3 guns. They say, listen, in the next room, we have your spouse chained down to a chair, and what we require of you is to go into the next room and shoot them in the head. Right away, the Army Ranger objects. Get the fuck out of here. What are you, crazy? I'm not gonna shoot my wife. Has a complete breakdown, tries to go for the door. They restrain him. All right, no problem. They get him and his wife. Boom, take him away. Navy SEAL gets up, salutes the guy, says, no problem, sir. I have to do what I have to do for my country. Goes into the next room. A few minutes, he comes back. He's crying. There's tears rolling down his cheeks, tears rolling down his face. Sir, I tried, sir. I put the gun up to her head, and I just couldn't pull the trigger, sir. I just couldn't do it. You're a disappointment, Seaman. Get your wife and get the fuck out of here. You ain't got what it takes. How about you, ma'am? Up stands up the Latina housewife from the Bronx. Takes her gun, walks into the next room. They hear the gunshot, blah! Then they hear boom, bat, crack! Huge ruckus. She comes back out, she's covered in blood and shit. They're like, hey, what the hell happened in there? And she was like, just so happens that the gun that you gave me had blanks in it, so I had to beat the motherfucker to death. 60 seconds after midnight, and you know what that means. It's time to get that chilled glass out of the fridge. Mix yourself one of them clean, creamy, Crystal Head vodka martinis. Drop in a few olives. Sit back, chill out, take a sip. Let us do the rest. If you're wondering who we are your tour guides through the real, the weird, everything in between. The show for street philosophers by street philosophers. I am your host, Sean Tango, and this is Night Owls. This episode brought to you by Dark Stars Records, the very best in underground entertainment and music. That indie brand that reminds you hip-hop ain't dead, it's just underground. Go peep them out. As always, I'm going to leave the link down below so you can check it. This episode coming to you a little bit late, just a couple days late. That's just because there's a whole lot that's been going on over here in the Night Owls family. You know, some good, some not so good. For the most part, been keeping busy, been keeping productive. So when it's busy and productive, that's all gravy. That's always good. We're just getting settled into the new studio. Currently, right now, we just got picked up on Vibe Live. You know what I'm saying? Much love to everybody out there. All my love out to Robin. We're currently going to start updating our pages and, you know, our channels aesthetically and all that kind of stuff. And getting up the Twitter and the Instagram and, you know, all that kind of stuff that is all foreign and alien to me, but I gotta do anyway. Now, unfortunately, we recently lost a close friend and a very talented artist, Gavin Simmons, aka Style Master. Naturally, we needed time to grieve. I don't think even now anyone is anywhere near getting over it. But, you know, we're trying to make the best of a bad situation. He will be missed. He's very loved, and wish he was still around. In light of this, we are going to dedicate the show to him. So during Creator of the Week, we'll be playing one of his tracks. The people over at Vibe Live, they did a really tasteful, a really great job at putting together a memorial show for him. I'm going to put that link down there, and I urge you to go and check it out. They play a lot of his work, a lot of his songs, and I'm not only like telling you with urgency, like I urge you to go over there and check it out, because I knew the guy and I thought he was a cool guy and I got a lot of love for him. But also because, in all sincerity, I think he was one of the more underrated and unappreciated and talented underground hip-hop artists. And I don't even want to just say he was a hip-hop artist, just underground artist that was out there. So please go and check that out. You know, one of the things I loved most about Gavin was the fact that I was never bored. I don't know how that comes off, but this is real talk. Whoever said that Gavin was a boring dude didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. I mean, the dude just had a fascinating curiosity and just a fascinating way of looking at things. He had this perception that was all his own, man. And he was one of these Star Trek dudes, you know what I'm saying? I call them Star Trek brothers. They be thinking out the box. They're always trying to go where no man has gone before and stuff like that. And regardless the nature of like the initial conversation, whatever conversation we may be having at the time, shit, I may have just called with the intention of like working out a few details for a project that we were doing or something like that. And, you know, just thinking it was going to be like this quick 5-minute thing, you know, and it starts out that way. And before you know it, 3 hours have gone by and we're like deep in Area 51 talking about David Icke and lizard people running the world. Now, keep in mind, some conversations were more THC inspired than others. But that being said, I thought it would be appropriate, you know, just as a nod to my man, to maybe touch on a subject that is a little more spiritual, a little more metaphysical, a little more philosophical. And one thing that we did bring up on more than one occasion is that idea that there are forces, negative and positive, you know, constructive and destructive, that exist in the universe that are proactively involved, you know, in influencing our lives and stuff like that. And that there are, you know, forces in the universe that there is a certain order to the universe, and that the universe is kind of a thinking, moving machine, you know? And we used to have, you know, kind of just philosophical chats about that, and just, you know, throw some ideas around. And what that brings me to is basically, what is the difference between what somebody, like, it reminds me of that conversation that Samuel L. Jackson's character had in Pulp Fiction with John Travolta's character and shit. And he was talking about like God coming down and stopping the bullets, you know, like divine intervention and shit. And it gets you thinking about, or at least it gets me thinking about, what is the difference between wild coincidence and something that you would consider to be synchronistic or serendipitous or, you know, magical or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like just something that is beyond the scope of what you would consider to be just a coincidence. Because look, I'm from the school of thought of this. All right, there are things that, as crazy as they may sound, I am more than certain are just a wild coincidence. Like it really just, you know, gets chalked up to shit happens. And trust me, shit happens. All right, you put enough people on this planet and you give enough time, and eventually every experience that is to be experienced is going to be experienced by someone, by at least one person. Whatever can happen will happen to someone at some point, given enough time. And I think that that's a pretty sound way of looking at shit. So even though something may look like, holy shit, like completely, you know, improbable, it doesn't make it impossible. You feel what I'm saying? And I can give you some examples of that. Like that one girl who went out to Paris on vacation, and she was in a bookstore just looking around, and she sees this book and she's like, oh, hey, hun, whatever, look at that book. I haven't seen that book since I was a kid. It's a really obscure book. I haven't seen it since I was like 7 years old or whatever. You know, since her childhood, she hadn't seen that book. So, I mean, what are the odds that she's going to bump into that book in Paris? You know, so she's like, I'm going to cop that book. So she goes to cop the book, and then she realizes that it's not a copy of the book that she hadn't seen since the childhood that she grew up with. It is the actual book. It is her book. She opened it up. It had like the actual, you know, her scribbles still in the pages. One of the book covers had her childhood home address on it, and actually said her name. Her name is Annie Parrish, by the way, for anybody who wants to look this up. True story. And is that like pretty amazing? That is pretty amazing. But I'm telling you, I chalk that shit up to shit happens. All right, those are one of those moments that, you know, if you isolate it, especially if you're the one that it's happening to, and you have something like that happen, we're like emotional and impressionable people, us humans and shit, you know. So we may blow it up to be more than what it actually is, where in reality, you know, even though I'm not going to say I'm 100% sure that this wasn't some sort of karmic thing or divine intervention or part of the universal blueprint, whatever, I'm pretty comfortable believing that this is just one of those things that happen. That is, as crazy as it is, as improbable it is, it isn't impossible. And it was just like I told you, you know, you put enough people, enough time, enough situations, eventually these things are going to happen. So I don't think there's anything too crazy about that, even though I know people who are going to disagree. Shit, I remember reading a story about a poker game back in I don't know if it was 1835 or 1858 or something like that. I do remember the main guy's name in the story. His name was Robert Fallon. The reason I remember is because I associated with Jimmy Fallon and shit. But there was a poker game, and the jackpot, like the pot, was something like $600 or something. And back in 1858 or whenever this was, that was a lot of guap, man. 600. And Robert Fallon had won it, but it turned out that the dude was cheating, and they found him out. And you've seen them old school movies, man. You know how seriously they take their poker back in the days. So they shot him. They killed his ass. They popped him. And don't think that just because they just shot somebody and they got to get rid of the body that means that they're going to stop playing poker. That's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Fuck that. So they just found somebody to take his place so they can continue the game and finish up. So they find this guy to replace him. They tell him, hey, look, we're going to leave the pot at 600, and you can take whatever money the dead guy got, and you can use that and finish the game or whatever. And the dude actually did it. So I mean, pretty crazy shit. So anyway, they sit down. The guy who replaced him not only ends up winning the $600 pot, he also keeps on winning until he turns those 600 into $2,200, which back then was a healthy chunk, pretty chunk of change right there, right? So after a while, of course, there was an investigation. I'm tempted to say the sheriff and stuff like that, but there was an investigation by the authorities, and what they came to the conclusion that the shooting was a righteous shooting. You know what I mean? That no one's gonna hang or anything like that. They didn't consider it to be murder, but they did say that the next of kin should be compensated, and that initial $600 pot should be given to whoever his next of kin was. And it turned out, after further investigation, that the person who had taken his place at the table was his next of kin, and they didn't even know it. Okay, turned out that was his long lost son, and they hadn't seen each other in almost a decade. Didn't even recognize each other. It's crazy shit, right? So you may say to yourself, at first glance, this is some kind of like divine intervention or some kind of karmic thing, or there's something to this. This is just too crazy. But then if you really sit down and you start to think about, yeah, maybe this is not something that happens every day, but again, it's not that impossible, okay? Given the fact that it was the 1800s, it was 1850, whatever, given the fact that transportation was what it was back then. It wasn't like they had the internet, there was no airplanes and shit. The way that people lived back then, the odds are that they probably lived in reasonably close proximity to themselves for most of that young kid's life. So the odds of them, actually bumping into each other at some point was probably not that slim. It was probably closer to 50-50 than what we're thinking. It's just the way that it played out, and how entertaining the story is and everything like that. It's crazy, and it makes you think, but I think we're just, we want to make things more than what they really are. So I think that's definitely, as crazy as it sounds, that's definitely one of those instances and shit, where it's just, hey, shit happens, right? But sometimes you can't always say, hey, shit happens. I'll be the first to admit that there are certain things that aren't that easily explained away. Certain things that aren't so easily dismissed. And we're definitely going to be touching on a couple of those things when we get back. But as promised, it's time for Creator of the Week. And we're going to be playing the Style Master joint. It's called 12 Strands. I'm just going to lean back now, burn up little, zone out little, and I will be seeing you guys at the end of the break.
Flicking lighters as a psychedelic astronaut. Mental aviation, breaking laws of gravitation. My rhyme's fresher than an Altoid. Haters stay mad like Bruce Banner, cause they play the background like a party planner, while I'm turned up with a bad man pajama, and these girls see through them like a body scanner. Cause the money doesn't even matter, personality gets pussy on a silver platter, and they love you if your rubber's got a gold rapper, and you move smooth like a kung fu master. My swag is so John Connor futuristic, graduated Xavier School for the gifted, magnetic, my mansion will surely be connected, plus I stay in clouds of smoke like a nightcrawler. It ain't brimstone, I'm blowing on that exotic, red horse, white widow, and some blue dream, got me seeing stars and stripes, ain't I patriotic? I'm a warrior for God, who's your hot demon.
That was Style Master, 12 Strands from the Style Mastery LP. I'm going to put the link down below. Go ahead and check it out. Go show that love. Go show that support. And Style Mastery is one of those LPs that has a very intentional vibe to it. You know what I'm saying? And Gavit, you know, Style Master was big on vibes, vibrations and shit. You know, good vibes, bad vibes, all that hippie shit. And not for nothing. I have my own, beliefs about that. I certainly think that there are certain things, certain people, and certain places that have a certain vibe to them. You know what I'm saying? You know, some people are good money. You know, some people good money, some people gravy and shit. Some people they bad juju, son. You know, some places are bad juju. And it goes back to right before the break when we were talking about when certain things are just so much that it goes beyond the scope of just coincidence. When you have an object or you have something or someone or somewhere, all right, that has like so much, negative shit associated with it, that you're like, yo, this goes way beyond coincidence. It's just too saturated in these wild events to just, shrug and say, hey, this is just shit happens. And people are fascinated by stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like things that have certain vibration, especially like the bad shit, like cursed objects and stuff like that. They be making movies, and all the movies, all those crazy movies are like allegedly inspired by true events. But you have like, cursed objects like Annabelle or haunted houses like the Amityville Horror and shit like that. And people love that shit. You know what I'm saying? But, and we've all had like, certain things or certain people give us like good or bad vibes and shit like that. Like we've been in a room talking to certain people, and then somebody walks into the room, everything is chill, but the minute they walk in, like everything gets all heavy. The whole feeling of the environment, like the atmosphere changes and stuff like that. And that person just gives you bad vibes, or you just see something, gives you the willies and shit. You see a house, you don't like the way it feels. There's just something to that, and we all have those like good or bad vibe moments. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm about to talk to goes beyond that. It goes beyond, well, this place just kind of give me the willies, or something about that guy that I don't like or whatever. No, it goes beyond that. Now, maybe some of you are gonna know about this, maybe some of you won't. Now, the whole like Amityville thing is pretty popular and all that stuff, but I'm pretty fucking sure that was a hoax. You know what I'm saying? And if it wasn't a hoax, it was probably one of those experiences that was just blown out of proportion to seem like it was more than it was. I'm pretty sure the majority of those kind of stories are like that. But there are things that is just too, that they're researchable, the facts are there, and you just say to yourself, damn, this is fucking crazy. Now, like I said, maybe some of you guys won't know about this. Some of you definitely will. But the car that James Dean was in when he died, I don't know if y'all know about this. He had this Porsche or whatever. He had it customized just for him. He was really into racing and shit like that. It's a lot like the Paul Walker situation. He was an actor and he was into racing and he was, whatever. And I think there's been some comparisons in their deaths. Paul Walker and James Dean. But the point is that this car, a lot of people say that it's cursed. Now, it may sound silly, but I have the list right here in front of me, and I'm gonna let you know all the crazy shit that's associated with this car, and then you sit back and you say to yourself, well, is this just coincidence, or is there something else happening here? Is there some spooky shit going on here? All right. We can start with the fact that James Dean died in that car. I don't want to say that the car killed James Dean. Shit, you know what this reminds me of? You remember that Stephen King novel? Christine, right? Yeah, because Carrie was gun shit. Christine. It kind of reminds me of that shit, only this is real life, right? So we can start with the fact that, all right, James Dean, died in the car, but that's not too crazy. Keep in mind, this is an actor in a souped up Porsche who likes to race, who was in a race, had an accident, and passed away. When you're involved in a sport like that and you're doing that kind of thing, you're fairly certain that, you're taking the risk that you can become, injured very badly or even lose your life and stuff like that. So that happened, and it's unfortunate, but that shit happened, right? Okay. After the accident and everything like that, eventually they got to tow the car out. They got to tow out the wreck. So they tow out the car and they bring it back to a garage. And when they got it back to the garage, the engine slipped out of the car and actually fell on the mechanic and crushed his legs. I mean, just completely shattered his leg. It's horrible. And then after a while, what started happening was that, and people do this to this day, what people started happening was that they started buying it up like memorabilia, like different pieces of the car and things like that. I don't know if they had auctions and stuff like that, but people who had the dough to do it were like buying different parts of their cars. I know some people put some of the parts of James Dean cars into their cars, and that's where the shit starts getting really fucking crazy. Because there was this one doctor, he bought the engine, that same engine that crushed the mechanic's legs. He bought this engine and he put it into his car. Now this doctor was, also a big racing fan and liked to race himself. He put it into a car that he was customizing himself. And he's like, yeah, I got James Dean's motor in here, And the same day that he installed the motor, he had a race and he died. The same day that the motor was installed, he died. And just to add insult to injury, just to make it that much more fucking crazy, there was another dude who died during that race as well, who actually had James Dean drive shaft fitted into his car. All right, so I was just two in a day, and the one thing that they had in common, I mean, besides the fact that they were racing, is the fact that they both had pieces of James Dean car in their vehicle. And those were the only two fatalities during that race. Okay, that's fucking crazy. But it doesn't end there. Later on, it was all the pieces were brought back together and they were repaired, and the car was stored in a garage, locked up in a garage. The garage that it was stored in actually caught fire, quote unquote, accidentally, and was completely destroyed, just completely burnt down, complete loss. The car was fine, the car's still there. Garage burned down, car still there. Alright? Later on, at some point, I know that, because this wasn't on the list. I know on the list I'm looking at this thing that it said that they had displayed it in front of a store at some point, and it fell off the trailer and actually ran through the store front. Like it just knocked down the entire front wall of the store. Crazy shit, alright? All this, you look this shit up, it's crazy. But the one that's not listed here, but that I know is true, so if you look it up, you'll see that it's true too, even though it's not on this list, is that somewhere in Sacramento, they had it on exhibit. They had some kind of exhibit, and a bunch of kids were on one of those road trips, one of those school trips where they go out and they go the museum or whatever, and this class was looking at the James Dean exhibit, and the car actually became dislodged from the display or whatever, and it fell into the crowd and it actually crushed one of the kids. I don't know if it broke his back or his hip or something, but if you look it up, it's there. All right, so look at all the number of things that are happening around this fucking thing. Finally, I think that I know it was destroyed, so I don't know. I know they say that it was a mystery, that they don't know exactly what happened. You know what I'm saying? I think that someone just finally found the car and just destroyed it. But they had it mounted up on some steel supports and shit like that, and it was just sitting on something. I don't know if they welded it or what the hell that they did. But overnight, one day they just came to check on the car, and it was all busted up into 11, 12 pieces. They just busted the fucking car up. It's just all broken into pieces or whatever, and that was basically the end of that. But it's shit like that actually, and reasonably so, puts the doubt in my head that everything is just coincidence. That some things are just beyond coincidence, you feel me? Now, I don't know what you think. Why don't you just comment below and let me know, and you know what I'm saying, we can discuss it further. But as far as I'm concerned, until I see otherwise. Those one of those situations where I definitely think there's some spooky shit going on. That's like the real life Christine right there. And that goes right back to what I was saying in the beginning of the show, in the first half of the show, that, you know, yeah, there are plenty of things that I believe can be explained away, but there are other things that are not that easily dismissed. So even though I believe that for the most part, when you hear a story that they're trying to make sound like it's more than coincidence, man, shit happens, you know. But every once in a while, you know, you do hear something and something does actually happen that, you know, puts reasonable enough doubt in your head that it's more than coincidence and there's something bigger going on. You know what I'm saying? There's something that's, you know, outside of what we would consider to be a rational explanation going on at that moment. All right, that's just the same as Major Summersford. You can go ahead and you can look this up. I'm not gonna get into like all the details of it, but this was a dude from way back in the day, Major Summersford. They got a bunch of like articles and a bunch of like YouTube videos and shit on it because it's such a crazy story. And this dude basically, you know, kept on getting hit by lightning. He was like riding a horse, he got hit by lightning, got knocked off the horse. He made like a full recovery from that shit. He was out like on a boat fishing or something. He got hit by lightning again, never quite recovered from that. Eventually he died, and even when he was 6 feet under, he still got hit by lightning because his tombstone got like blown up, got hit by lightning and damaged. You know what I'm saying? So he pissed off somebody in Mount Olympus. Cause even this dude's, you know, even 6 feet under, pushing daisies and shit, and Odin is still casting down bolts trying to smite this motherfucker. So think about that shit next time you're thinking about being grimy and shit, or you know, you thinking about being a jerk to that person who you know don't deserve it and shit. Might get your ass struck by fucking lightning and shit. You hear people say all the time, you know, may God strike me down, may lightning strike me. Lightning might fucking strike you, motherfucker. Be careful. That being said, I'm getting the black light, so I know it means it's past my bedtime, getting close to that witching hour. You know, time to get me off the air and tuck me in. As always, I want you to keep it love, keep it peace, treat other people the way you want to be treated. And we're going to see you guys soon. We're going to do 2 shows this week, so because we're kind of backed up and we want to keep things consistent. So I'll see you guys in a couple days. And in the meantime, I'm going to leave you with Style Master again. Deuces.
It's like swinging on a trapeze with weak knees and no net. Trying to stay alive like the Bee Gees with police in your feces. Sesame Streets, people dancing like puppets, eyes glued to the TV. The power elite, pull strings like a quartet. Better yet, a corset. They trying to get a tighter squeeze. On lab rats trying to get a bite of cheese. Who keep their minds tucked together like they Siamese. Group think, the water in your sink make your pineal shrink. Just to keep you in sync with the slow vibration in the matrix of 5 sensations. To keep your brain on vacation. Occupations to bondage. Organized religion is holding your spirit hostage. Feeding your garbage to keep you from getting brolic. Burying your head in the sand just like an ostrich. So I keep crosses, holy water and garlic. To stake through the hard shit. Straight from the hard shit. Stiff upper lip trying to make it through the hardship. Still waiting on the starship. Anunnaki coming for the mineral deposits. Reptiles spraying the sky. What is the reason? They season salt in the sky so they can eat us. They feed on your weakness. On some trick or treat shit. It's Halloween and the demons are fiending for mindless zombies hypnotized by the mystique. Force-fed lies to those who blind to the technique. Wash, rinse, repeat the new spin cycle. People gotta stay on their toes just like Michael.